Good morning, everybody. It's 10:55 in the morning on the 4th of March, 2026, and it's Wednesday. And I'm not going to be talking so much about some of these last events that happened, overnight. I'm going to probably try to make another video on that. I didn't really go through a lot of that stuff yet, but I just want to mention a few things about, what brought us to this, and maybe what is going to be in the future. I mean, some things that I see maybe that are coming up. It's kind of some interesting things. I know that I think that Iran struck a few more of these, like maybe embassies or places in the Gulf states that the United States, cherishes, and the United States has virtually told everybody, told all all Americans. First, remember, what was it, a day or two ago? They were saying shelter in place, and now they're telling everybody to get out, and that they can't help you. You got to get out on your own. They don't have the capability to rescue anybody. That includes Israel, by the way. And Mike Huckabee has apparently gone into hiding somewhere. So he's hiding, and as you know, Benjamin Netanyahu, he's showing himself, but Israel has early warning. So they know long in advance. They probably know an hour and a half in advance when any kind of missiles are coming in from Iran. And if he gets any kind of a notification, he just moves out of any kind of a area, and he can even watch the bombings at his own leisure if he so does decide. In the 12-day war, of course, he went into hiding into bunkers and things like that. But anyway, it's the United States has realized now that they bit off more than they could chew, so they're telling everybody to get out of there. And of course, the implications of what is going on is, I think that the United States is now gone from the Persian Gulf. Any of these countries, the UAE, maybe the areas including Kuwait, those American troops are gone, and they're not going to be going back, because the United States, the whole purpose of all of these places was to contain Iran and threaten Iran. And now they realize that Iran can strike these things, and they will strike those things. And so they said, oh, we made a little bit of a miscalculation here. And so Donald Trump's kind of panicking in those ways. Obviously, the United States has tremendous amount of firepower, and they can virtually destroy a good portion of Iran. But Iran is a very big country, far bigger than Iraq, and they're not going to be able to do much of this. It's, I guess, the size, if you want to compare that to something in Europe, I think it's like the size of France and Germany and Holland and Luxembourg and a lot of Europe. The size, it's the size of Europe mostly, and it's impossible to be bombing everywhere. And Iran has been preparing for this for many decades. They knew that there would be a war coming with the United States, and Cuba should have also maybe known about this as well, because it's a very similar circumstance. You do not exert your sovereignty when the United States has taken over your country and made a colony out of you. It's Cuba, for example. Look at that. And, they've been under punishment since, 1962? And Iran since 1979? And Iran has said, okay, we better get ready. And they did get ready. When the Iranians kicked out the American dictators out of there, and it's similar in Cuba, but for some odd reason, Cuba has not been able to do it, obviously, because they're right there. They're right next to the United States, and they're under the United States' thumb, and the United States has had a blockade on that country for all that time. So they've only let some of the most essential goods be coming in, and now they've even topped it off even more. Donald Trump, obviously, he's a very cruel and hateful person, and I didn't used to think that, but he comes out and he says how nice of a guy he is and how moral he is, but he's proven otherwise. Just like this strike on this girls' school. Nobody's going to forget this. Nobody's going to forget that. And apparently, the number of schoolgirls that was killed is 171. And apparently the number is nearly, I think, 180. And the rest of them were teachers. But it's 171 schoolgirls that were killed. And that's very appropriate for Donald Trump, who's into the Epstein class, and their disrespect for young little girls. And a lot of this, like I was even saying before, is a wag the dog sort of a deal, and apparently Donald Trump is implicated very badly in these Epstein files, and I guess there's some evidence of that. And who had control of all of these files? Oh, it was the Donald Trump administration. And that's one reason why it took so long to go through all of these files is they're removing all of this stuff. The Democrats were at a loss because there was a lot of Bill Clinton things in there as well. And of course, Donald Trump obviously made a deal with a lot of these Democrats is to hide all of this stuff, to take out all of the worst files and to make it look like Bill Clinton is just a nice guy. And we know different. We know different. This is just unbelievable stuff. And Donald Trump, I guess there's a theme of how Donald Trump treats a lot of people, you know. So he's got this stuff, Donald Trump, and he did it for PR purposes. He's helped people and with charity and things like that were in trouble. But obviously, he did this for PR purposes and then a lot of this wicked stuff that he has done. No wonder he didn't want to meet any of these victims of the Epstein class, because who knows, maybe he might recognize a face or two. I'm not saying Donald Trump was really into that, but apparently he is implicated, and there is no doubt about that he has gone into that. I'm not saying that Donald Trump took part in some of these other ritualistic things, you know, what they call jerky, which is cannibalism, which was cannibalism of young girls. And there's a lot of that in the Epstein files, and they call it jerky, and they have the grape soda. I don't know exactly what the grape soda is, but if you are familiar with blood libel and all that, and it's like saying, well, maybe that stuff really is true. And of course, Benjamin Netanyahu sits around, or Satanyahoo, sits around and laughs and says, oh, this is all ridiculous stuff and all. But he's implicated in other things, lots of corruption in Israel, and he's been trying to cover it up. These people, these are a bunch of gangsters. Donald Trump, the more you're finding out about Donald Trump, especially what I'm going to be talking about today, he is nothing but a gangster. He is a vicious gangster. And I used to think that old Robert De Niro was overdoing it and overemphasizing that, and I was more of a Trump supporter back in those days. But the more you're finding out that Robert De Niro was not so deranged after all, and you're seeing this guy like spit and vinegar, and I mean, and that, I said that already, and I'm amazed. You have to always be amazed at what you have to think back of what was my attitude then, and what is my attitude now. And Robert De Niro is not such a nutcase after all. And then you're looking at all of the people on the left as you know, portraying themselves as the victim. Oh, we're the victim. Oh, you know. But then who is the president that says that he's the victim? That everybody is after him, that Canada is so evil, and I'm the victim. Oh, look at what they've done to the United States. Look at what they've done to me. Look at what they've done to me. They are all so bad. You know, now he's doing very similar things, as we all see, to Iran. And if you look back through the news, what has Iran ever done to the United States? Really? Iran has been very restrained ever since the revolution in 1979. And they've never attacked the United States. And the truth is that Iran has never attacked anybody for, hundreds of years? And the United States can't even go more than 1 month without attacking somebody in some way militarily, bombing them. You know, and you can even say sanctions is an act of war as well. And Donald Trump is really into the tariffs and things. And it's just, you know, talking about all of this stuff is just, you know, I think most of you already know this. But let me just start now what I was actually going to be getting at. And I might have to do another video. There's way too much information, way too much stuff. So I just kind of centered on a few different things. One of the main things I'm going to be talking about in this video is as an example, like Patagonia and this Javier Milei of Argentina. And it's just absolutely striking about the power and the control that Israel has. They are maybe even the biggest superpower on earth, not the United States. The United States has a military superpower. But and you would think that you just can't go in and start bombing somebody, but the rules are all gone. There are no rules anymore. If the United States ever followed rules, but they had a lot more restraint maybe in the past, even if they didn't obey any rules. And nobody's going to hold them to it. When the United States disobeys international law, what are you going to do about it? You know? So, anyway, but this war, as I wanted to say, it shows you how much control that Israel has over the United States. That's undeniable fact. And it's not just that they virtually own Donald Trump. That was very funny too. They had this, and everybody's talking about that. When some reporter asked Donald Trump about, is this war for Israel? And everybody knows that it is. Like all the wars basically throughout the Middle East, they're always for Israel. Everybody's been talking about that for decade after decade, and everybody knows that. It's undeniable. It's an undeniable fact. Well, if it's not an undeniable fact, why does everybody keep talking about it? And why is it so obvious, so glaringly obvious? So what is this war against Iran going to do for the United States? And all these excuses for the war, they keep changing them, and Donald said they completely obliterated already all the nuclear program. That's gone. And it's even on, I guess, the government news site. Anybody that says otherwise is nothing but a conspiracy theorist, and that's fake news. It's fake news because the United States destroyed everything. So now we're bombing Iran again, 10 months later, to get rid of their nuclear program that we already destroyed. And oh no, it's about the missiles. Oh no, it's about the roadside bombs. It's all the. So why don't they just come out and admit? Because Israel wants them gone. Israel has their project of Eretz Israel, of Greater Israel, and we are. What is the word? We're captive of Israel. Donald Trump, in my opinion, he is definitely compromised. They have the goods on him. Israel has all this. Epstein was working for intelligence agents. There's no doubt about it. And the CIA and Mossad are joined at the hip, but they have the goods on Donald Trump, and Donald Trump has to do exactly what they tell them to do. One of the things of training that I had even weeks of it, is all about manipulation. It is how to realize when you are being manipulated. And they start out normally with small things. When somebody is manipulating you, they get you to do something that is a little bit illegal. This is when you're an official, in an official position, which anytime this comes into play, it's called corruption. But let's not get into that. So let's just say how it starts out. They start out something small, and then they use that as leverage. That's a big famous word for Donald Trump, against you. So Donald Trump, when he was buddies with Epstein, and then they're having a good old time out there and all the time with very young girls, and there are photos. I've even seen some online, and I don't know, did they get rid of those? With these very young girls sitting around Donald Trump. And apparently they did not show the really meaty photos, but there's these young girls, and they covered up their faces, and they're leaning on Donald Trump, and they're definitely very young girls. And it's partying with Epstein, and somebody took Polaroid. These were Polaroid photos, where the Instamatic, things like that. And it's clearly Donald Trump. They showed his face big time. But they just covered the face of these little girls. And Donald Trump's having a good old time. And I think I saw 2 of the photos, and there's other ones that they said, the meaty ones, they were holding it back. And obviously Israel has these photos, and but in those photos themselves, I don't think it's really that much of an implication. It's just suggestive, and it shows Donald Trump with very young underage girls. Oh boy, there's a lot of this stuff around. But I've already talked about this in other videos. I don't want to keep repeating and taking a lot of time in the video, but Donald Trump, he's implicated, and he doesn't want this stuff to get out. And that's the one, thing. So you manipulate them, you take these little photos here, and then Donald Trump, of course, probably was manipulated by Epstein. And how you do this is you say, well, come on, have a good time and all that. And, the guy says, oh, don't take photos and blah, blah, blah. He says, oh, I already have photos of you. It's blah, blah, blah. And you show them, and it's not a big deal. I'm not going to show them. Don't worry about that. And, and there's all kinds of different ways. There's the carrot and the stick, as you all know. And so anyway, they got more things. And then in these rooms, Epstein had cameras, obviously. Maybe Donald Trump, playing dumb like he didn't think so or didn't know. I don't know. But there was testimony from some of these young girls, at least 2 of them. And, somehow they got out. I don't know. Israel might have had something to do with that. And that's actually just to scare Donald Trump. So Donald Trump knows very well what Israel has on him. So Donald Trump has to play play the game and do everything what Israel tells him to do, and that's exactly what he's doing. So then, that's just a short and long of all of this manipulating sort of a deal. Okay, so it's not only Donald Trump, the presidency. They control the Congress too, at least 90%, and that's a known fact. Thomas Massey said every congressman has an AIPAC guy, which an AIPAC, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, which is illegal in the United States. And actually John F. Kennedy was seeking to get rid of that, but look at what happened to John F. Kennedy. And there was a lot of other things about John F. Kennedy going against Israel, and that was it. That was it. And Johnson, I talked about the USS Liberty and Johnson. Anybody that was bringing up anything about the USS Liberty, President Johnson went after them. So, basically this is, part of the embarrassing history of the United States that is covered up, and it's gone virtually, but some people wrote books and it got out. And it's a very, very striking thing. And America didn't even help that boat. It went to Malta. After it was struck by Israel, the Russians offered help. I can't remember exactly. I didn't read the book necessarily. I saw excerpts, and there are a lot of U.S. soldiers, I guess, that came out and talked about this later, even though there was heavy penalties. I don't know exactly what they did to soldiers that would ever talk about this, but there was penalties against soldiers that would ever talk about this USS Liberty, which shows the subservience of Lyndon B. Johnson towards Israel. And Israel has been in control of U.S. presidents ever since. The one that had the most, and I don't even like Obama, but Obama, they had the least control over Obama than most all of these presidents for my lifetime, I guess. But anyway, they got the most control over Donald Trump, and there's no doubt about that. And but anyway, Israel, they control the Congress as well. And like Massey said, it was he and Marjorie Taylor Greene that didn't have AIPAC guys. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, her life was threatened on multiple occasions, and she saw how they could actually wipe her out. And all these people have to come out and say they're not suicidal. They have to come out and say that. Otherwise, there's a lot of reporters and things that have to come right out and do. Otherwise, they were having a rough time, they were depressed, and they committed suicide. You guys have heard that millions of times. And Bill Clinton, even, a lot of things that happened. What is the body count, the Clinton body count? Some people have that number over 200. It's very strange that 8. He used the, the State Patrol or something as his bodyguards when he was governor. And it's very strange that I think 8 of them, their brakes went out on their car. It's a coincidence. We all know that. We all know lots of people whose brakes just suddenly went out in their car and they crashed and they died. It happens all the time, Right, and all these other people. And even when Hillary Clinton, there was 2 people. Seth Rich, he was leaving the headquarters from the DNC, and he was mugged and robbed, but it's a very strange thing. They didn't take his money or his watch or anything. They took a flash drive. So they killed him. And there was even, I think it was a Supreme Court justice who also had a tragic accident in the weights, I think, where his larynx was crushed by a barbell or something like that during the Clinton campaign things. But it's all coincidence. These at least 100 people. And there was even these people that claimed that they were part of the assassination team of the Clintons for overseas. And they were even on interviews. I don't know if that's true or not. Why were they? I think that was on Alex Jones. So you never know. But anyway, a lot of this stuff was removed. And there's even transcripts also. And I think it's possibly even still in there when Bill Clinton, during these scandals with Monica Lewinsky, when they were talking, I think, on the telephone, that they had the telephone transcripts. Whether they've now disappeared or not, I don't know. But when he was having this affair with her, and she was saying, he cautioned her. He said, says, be careful what you say. Let me see. There is a foreign government that listens in on our phone conversations, on all phone conversations. And if you don't know that the Israelis have tremendous power over the entire system of listening in on telephone calls throughout the United States. I remember I met a guy when I was learning as dental technician, and he was this big computer whiz guy. He didn't really even want to become a dental technician, but his father owned a dental laboratory and, wanted him to do that. But he sat next to me and I helped him out quite a bit, and he would tell me some things. And one time he looked both ways and he said, "Did you know that the United States listens in on all phone calls in Germany?" And I think I might have even known that by that time, but I know that they have, I don't know if that is part of this Five Eyes. They have this weird thing where Israel listens in on U.S. phone calls and U.S. listens in on Germany's phone calls, but they have this group of countries. And so part of this was, and I think Edward Snowden even talked about this, he said they did this in such a way to where the United States can, have deniability by coming out and saying, no, we don't listen in on Americans' telephone calls. And of course that is even gone now. Now they openly listen in on Americans' telephone calls, and Edward Snowden is the one that actually exposed all that. And they read all emails, and they have that big center in Salt Lake, it's at least in Utah, I think it was maybe in Salt Lake City. Anyway, huge, and they can listen in, and they have the capability to tap into everything all over the world and all emails and things like that. And even Apple, they even listen in on Apple things, and you think your stuff is encrypted and all that, but it's not. And it just came out, when was this? This was just weeks ago, that the stuff from WhatsApp it's not encrypted either. They've been able to listen in and look at everything on WhatsApp. There's just so much, all this surveillance and stuff, but that's just a side note. So, I was going to talk about more. Mostly this is the superpower of Israel, and they're a superpower of influence. There is no doubt about that. I've been saying that for a long time. And I don't know, a lot of people will probably agree with me, but if you control the world's superpower, and everybody says, oh, the U.S., some might say that they're the only superpower. So when you control the world's superpower, you in your own right are a superpower, because you control the one that is the superpower. Oh, that makes sense now, doesn't it? Very easy. So the past several months, Israel has taken more control of not just the media and their surveillance operations, but they're taking more and more control of the Middle East. So in the 7 months, they've taken a large part of Syria, as you all know. And the United States, they controlled, 1/3 of Syria. And they said they own it and it is their property. The United States State Department has said that. And I'm sure you can find something if you look on the internet. I doubt if they took that off. And I can't remember what her name is, but she is saying that on video. We own it and it is our property, which is part of Syria. And I think that was even before this Jolani guy took over. But, Jolani obviously, and there was a deal, and a lot of people talked about that, between Turkey and Israel. And on one side, Israel and Turkey work together, and maybe on another side, maybe they don't. It's very strange. I don't know. I don't know myself, to be honest with you. Because Erdogan, nobody can judge him. I don't know. Maybe he's less easy to judge than even Donald Trump, of course. But everybody knows what Netanyahu is up to. So, and it's all about power, and influence. And they have their own way of doing things, as you know, through the Mossad. Wow. So, what they're doing, and what I think the last part of what they did in Syria is they established a buffer zone for the buffer zone. They already had a buffer zone, but now they have a buffer zone for the buffer zone. It's not only that they took the entirety of the Golan Heights now, and they control it, but it's even more. There are more parts of it. And there's some people say it's 25% of Syria, but I doubt it. I doubt that very much. And then there's some people on these sites, and a lot of this is from what I call AI, and it's probably done like that in lies on purposely. Oh, they only have 0.7% of control of Syria. Oh, no. It's more than that. It's more than that. What is it? I don't even know how many thousands of kilometers the Golan Heights is. And of course, now they're going for the oil and the natural gas there and all that. And Israel, in a very short time, they're going to be, a far richer country, basically from taking over the parts of Syria, because that's one of the mineral rich parts of Syria, and they're taking that. The other mineral rich part is the part that the United States controlled. And, like Al Tanf, apparently the United States has gotten out of that. And I don't know. I'm hoping that these people, they move in from Iraq and start to take over this thing. So the United States is actually, in that respect, they are losing. They are losing this war against Iran in that respect. Sure, they're damaging a tremendous part of Tehran and all. And they can go ahead and keep on firing up and burning down these launchers, which is what they're trying to do. At the same time, Iran is destroying a lot of the launchers of the United States and Israel. And so a lot of the attacks by Israel is to bomb not just that one school. They bombed another school. They bombed girls that were playing volleyball in a gym. They killed a bunch of them. They bombed hospitals already. And they are bombing other parts and infrastructure, maybe, that it is important. But I'm thinking that Iran is being a lot more frugal. So a lot of people are talking about the fact that when Iran sends in 2 missiles, it's like Israel is using many more expensive missiles, interceptor missiles, to try to get those missiles. So apparently they're down to the last 25% of their interceptors. And the United States is trying to be taking them from other places. There was one place, and I don't think it was Bahrain, but there was one place in the Emirates, and they said they're still well stocked up with interceptors. But I don't know if Iran is necessarily. I think it was Qatar. I don't know. I don't know if Iran was necessarily going after like assets of Americans as powerfully in those places as they were, for example, against Bahrain, which was the Fifth Fleet. And pretty much that's destroyed. So the United States is out of most of those places, and they're never going to come back. They're never going to come back. Oh, that's so fascinating news. I might as well just tell you now at this point in time. You all have heard that Iran said they're not going to be negotiating with the United States. That's over now. And why should they? Because the United States stabs them in the back every single time. They're negotiating, and they send out these head fakes and all that. One of the biggest head fakes was that they didn't think that the United States was going to strike during the day, because the strikes are always normally at night. And but the Ayatollah, I guess, he thought it could be a possibility, but anyway, he was killed, and virtually his whole family, his wife even died. Now, I don't know if I reported that one. Wife, his daughter, and his granddaughter, and his, not grandson, his daughter's husband. Son-in-law. Okay. Joe Biden moments, I guess. Yeah. But some of these places that Israel holds in Syria, they might actually, at some point in time, revert back, because they don't have any natural barriers necessarily where they can actually defend them necessarily. I guess under a strong attack they would probably lose them again. But like I said, they're trying to make a buffer zone for a buffer zone. Who knows what they're going to do? Maybe they'll build a fence again, their wall. That can be blown down too. But that is a main reason also why they're going for southern Lebanon, because that will make that easier for them to defend those territories in Syria, because that puts something very close next door. And obviously they're going to be trying to go all the way to the Litani River, and they've evacuated, I think, 70 villages and towns now. And Hezbollah is not strong enough to hold all this. And the Lebanese military has evacuated, so they're allowing Israel to take all of this. And it's going to take something more power than I think any of the resistance has to expel Israel from these areas. And they're going to, get themselves more ingrained. Obviously, they're taking over that area. This is part of Eretz Israel. But I think they're going to stop at the Litani River for the time being. That's my prediction, because they can't get too overextended. And part of what I'm going to be talking about today is one reason why that's not going to be possible to be holding any area larger than that, just the same as in Syria. Syria, I don't think they're going to be moving settlers in, but the other places they will. So I'll get into that too. So yes, southern Lebanon, and they're bombing Beirut like nobody's business either. So, and this Bondi Beach thing, hang on a second here. This Bondi Beach attack in Australia, that was certainly engineered by Israel, in case you didn't notice. But I didn't look into that so much, and I've heard reasons why, and it's been explained how that actually happened and all. But like I said, I'm not getting paid for this stuff, so I don't go and spend so much time doing so much research in all these different areas. But it's always gets fascinating when you see how Israel seeks to control the universe, you know, the masters, and they obviously are. So, but I guess you can look at that yourself. But the whole reason for this attack at this Bondi Beach was to get settlers. That is, to get people to move. In that area, obviously, there is a big community of Jewish people, and that is to encourage them for their own safety to go to Israel. But I think those people now are probably thinking, well, it doesn't look that safe in Israel now either, does it, huh? So, so the whole deal is they're trying to get settlers to move to these areas, and of course they want the radical settlers. As you all have seen, if you're watching a lot of this news and things that comes out from Israel for decades, for many decades, a lot of these settlers are very radical, and they're all very heavily armed, and they really terrorize and they run out anybody that are the Palestinians or any of the people that actually have been on that land for maybe over 1,000 years. They run them all out and they steal their land. And this has happened since the very beginning of what's happened in this new project of Israel, as you all know. And it's been put out many, many times. And I've heard this even most all of my lifetime. All of the different ways how they get rid of the people and how this, what is ethnic cleansing is coming about. And in the very beginning times, you know, a lot of these people that came from places in Europe and the UK and all, they were welcomed and they were helped by the Palestinians, and they allowed them to stay in their homes until they could get a place of their own and to assemble something and start something up. And then there was at a certain time, and I'm not even sure of the time, I'm just trying to go through this very quickly, when, like say, these people would leave somewhere on a vacation or go visit some relatives in a different town, and then by the time they came back, the locks were changed on their houses, and these people that they befriended and let them stay in their homes and, you know, take the extra spare bedroom, said, get out of here, this is now our homes. So they stole the homes from these Palestinians, and all of a sudden these Palestinians had nothing left. A lot of them went to Jordan and they settled in refugee camps and things. And of course there was military things going on, and they ran them out by gunpoint. And the whole thing, it was a Zionist, and that's the Zionism. That is what Zionism really is. So that's the whole point of Zionism. So that's why these people, you know, it's to take this homeland. And they even came up with, they said something, I remember, and there might have even been a book, or at least there was some kind of an essay about it. And they said, a people without a land for a land without people. So they were trying to perpetrate in America and sent out, you know, that there was nobody living there. And they just all of a sudden came. And they just came and they populated these lands, and they made the desert blossom and all that. And of course with a lot of money from the United States. So, but anyway, they need settlers. They need a lot of settlers. Because it's very difficult to be holding this land if you don't have people armed with guns to help out the military and to hold all of these places. So Israel cannot get overstretched, and they cannot do this too quickly. So they've been spending a lot of this time trying to get the West Bank, and they've taken nearly all of it. If you look at the very beginning and see how much bigger Israel has gotten, and now, as you see, Gaza is shrinking. It's getting smaller. They used to be joined. Gaza and the West Bank were all one thing, and then it was all separated. So it's a long-term project, and they need settlers for doing all of this. And the sad thing is, what they really hate is that the Palestinians, oh, how do I say this? They're more prolific. What do they say? Some people say they breed. They have more children than these Israelis do, or these Europeans that are now Israelis do. So they have bigger families. And actually, it's when you think, oh, that's very bad of these people. And I've even thought of that as well. And I knew back, and I'm talking about in the 1980s. This is an undeniable fact. You had some people that were coming from Eastern Europe, and they were coming from Africa and things like that. And I've known people, and they've told me this, that they said that they were going to breed the French out of being a majority, and they're going to breed them into a minority. And lo and behold, look at what's happening. And look at what happened in the UK. And I'm not saying necessarily there was some big plan. Obviously, some people thought on those lines. And it's not like I'm against people from Syria or Africa or anything like that. But there was a plan, of course, like that. And these people, that is the only weapon that they have because, of what the UK with their colonization has done to a lot of their countries, and France and all that. So actually, in a way, they're getting their just desserts. Germany didn't really have that many colonies, and it's not that great in Germany, but it's not as severe as France or the UK. It's very strange. What is this? What's that? Karma or something? I don't know. So, I think I talked about this part here. Well, anyway, this is all, and so many people talk about this. If you watch the Young Turks, for example, and they're talking about Eretz Israel or Greater Israel, Greater Israel. This is just then they have the Christian Zionists, and there's people even talking about that. They're even worse. They're worse than the Jewish Zionists. Unfortunately, there's evangelicals and all that, and they're out pushing this, and it's a very strange thing. It's like they want to help, and they have this really strange view. And I tell you what, I stay away from this stuff. That's why, because I don't understand it so much and why people can think this way. But it is like they hate the Jews, but they help the Jews in order to exterminate this kind of stuff, and so that it's something about like the coming of Jesus and all that sort of a deal. But that's very weird stuff, and that one time so many people are going to be wiped out. That includes a lot of Christians and Muslims, and the Jews will be and taken out of the Holy Land. And I don't understand it all because none of it makes any sense, so I can't tell you what the whole thing is about that. But I know that as the Muslims also believe that Jesus will return. They didn't say Muhammad will return. They said Jesus will return again. So it's similar to what the Christians believe. And of course, a lot of these Zionist type Jewish people, they want you not to know that sort of a thing. So, but like Jesus is highly worshipped in the Muslim church as well, just not maybe as worshipped so much as Muhammad. They look at Jesus and Muhammad as prophets and things like that. But it's kind of a strange thing. Well, how can Jesus return if Jesus was just a human being? And the Muslims say that Jesus will return. I don't know. Religion is something, it raises maybe sometimes more questions than it answers. So I just stay kind of away from this stuff. And I know Jesus lived and all that, and I respect that, and it's very wise, and this must have been some really, really amazing person. There were other amazing people in history, but maybe Jesus was the most amazing. So that's kind of mostly as far as I go, and I don't want to pick on any religion, so that's just to add that in there. So yeah. So Israel needs bodies. And there's a very strange thing, and this is a large part of what I was going to talk about today, is Argentina. As we all saw, Milei, and what was that, in 2023 at the end, I think it was November, he became the leader of Argentina, and immediately, like the next day, he said he proclaimed himself to be Jewish for the most part, but he has not yet converted to Judaism, and apparently he can't until actually he leaves office, which is, I don't understand why, but then anyway, that's how that goes. And I think less than a year after that, of course, he started the legislation right away, and this was a very strange thing. And let me talk a little bit more about it. Is immediately when he became the president, he started these economic reforms, and that was really terrible because he devalued the value of the peso by like 50%. Anybody that had savings and even pensioners and stuff, virtually your life was ruined. But I think at the same time that what that did, he raised wages. So in other words, those people that they don't need anymore, the retirees, now all of a sudden became very poor people. Those people that had spent your lifetime saving money, your money was worth half as much now as it was already. So, there goes your dream of having a house. So the people that are working, they kind of got some advantage because maybe it's almost like you get a wage increase. So in other words, it tells everybody, even if you can't work, you better be working or else you don't have any money. So life is going to be real bad for you. So, but along with that, also, he showed how much he loved Ukraine. I think he sent a whole bunch of weapons and things to Ukraine, tanks, whatever Argentina kind of had. They sent a lot of that. So he pledged his submissiveness to Donald Trump, to Ukraine, and to Israel, as soon as he became the president. And then he did these economic reforms. So he was really radical. He's absolutely also not a conservative. So he's a lot like Donald Trump. So anyway, it caused a lot of problems. And of course, that is what made Trump give Milei 60 billion, 40 billion plus 20 billion from the IMF, and got it to Milei, this loyal servant of, Donald Trump's Jewish religion, because Donald Trump is for all purposes, he's Jewish as well. He's a Jewish Zionist. I'm sorry, it's like if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck and looks, it's a duck. So Donald Trump is a Zionist Jewish president, and he's doing everything for Israel, even if he is compromised by Israel. So maybe that's one of the things he had to convert. I'm guessing, just like his son-in-law and just like his daughter, and of course pledge everything to Israel. But so getting a huge amount of money to Argentina, there is something also maybe a little bit tied to that. This is some interesting stuff. Have you ever heard of the area called Patagonia? Immediately when Javier Milei became the leader of Argentina, he started in legislation to change the rules governing this area, which is supposedly an incredibly beautiful, wild nature adventure place on planet Earth. Mountains and forests and beauty, fjords, and whatever, and various species of animals and all kinds of wondrous things. And it's very sparsely populated. And what he did is he changed the laws, and there was originally laws that foreigners could not own any land in Patagonia. And it was a very protected area. And he also, at that time, started this legislation, and I think it came about towards the end of 2023 for all practical purposes. I think it was in December. So right away, probably starting January 2024, I'm imagining when it became active, is that, foreigners can own land, and especially if, and I think there's a part in there that says if there is a forest fire on those lands that, of course the land is going to be heavily devalued because all of the vegetation is gone on a lot of that land, and not only that land, but adjoining lands to that land. So the value of that land would go down quite a bit. But anyway, they can sell this land to foreigners. And what happened was, and I guess there is reports of this, there was an former Israeli, I guess 2 guys, and apparently they had flamethrowers, somehow incendiary equipment that started forest fires in Patagonia in various places. So it burned up, oh gosh, what is it? 52,000 acres. Huge, huge area of Patagonia. And 90% of Patagonia is in Argentina and 10% is in Chile. But obviously it did in the Argentina areas, and he has no jurisdiction over the 10% of the Patagonia that is in Chile. So anyway, it burned up a huge portion of this. And this is way down on the southern part of Argentina, the continent of South America. And it's not on the very furthest south, but it's a very huge area. I don't know what percentage of Argentina is Patagonia, but when this stuff burned, and high officials even know, they talked to witnesses that I guess witnessed that it was Israelis that were starting these fires, apparently. And like I'm talking about high officials, even high officials in the military in Argentina, that it was Israelis that actually started doing this. So a lot of this land was destroyed, and right after that, lots of Israelis were coming in, or maybe even some that were single. I don't know how many. Maybe it only 10. I don't have known. But anyway, a number of Israelis came, and they bought up huge portions, thousands of acres, many thousands of acres of Patagonia. And I'm just wondering what this is all about. That this guy pledged his loyalty to Israel, and Israel came in there, but yet they're expanding, and they need bodies. They need bodies to expand in these other areas over there. And I'm just wondering, well, why did they buy all this area in Patagonia then? It's very strange, and I don't know if anybody out there has the answer to that. But it's not like they're going to move settlers. But a lot of people are saying that they're trying to make a second Israel over there, and I don't know if it's for strategic reasons or what, or maybe it's going to be tourist reasons. But you know, when a lot of the beauty of the land is gone, you know, maybe that's still mountains and nice areas, but I really don't know. And it's not maybe just those areas that were burned. They bought a lot of the area that wasn't burned as well. Mile used to be a Catholic, and I don't know, immediately he converted to, well, said he can't convert yet, but he will convert to Judaism as soon as he has that opportunity to do so. It's really some strange stuff. Yeah. Yeah, but the investigation is actually somewhat unofficial, and obviously they're not going to give a real official, so that they can also say, oh, this is all conspiracy theory and it's anti-Semitism. So that you're going to find reports that say that's anti-Semitism, it isn't true. But apparently, like I said, there's witnesses, and it's like, well, so these, but they always say this, conspiracy theory, anti-Semitism, so that you'll say, oh, okay, I won't even look at it anymore. You know, and a lot of us, even myself, say, okay, well, that's maybe not that important. I can look at other things, you know, and I don't live there. It doesn't affect me at all. But exactly that is what is used as a weapon to get things that people want. So it's just something that you all can be aware of. And I don't know if this has to do, and it goes back to, for example, the protocols of the elders of Zion, and you know, and that is, it has its roots maybe in the middle of the 19th century, maybe, I don't know, I think maybe it was go back as far as 1840 or something, and a lot of it is based on some sort of a fictional writings or something like that. But anyway, the protocols of the elders of Zion is something written, and it's like that the Jews want to control the media and the finances of the world and all that sort of stuff. You know, the weird thing is that even if it is fake, why is it the information that's in the protocols of the elders of Zion actually coming true? And I mean, why is that all true? And it's not like, oh, you're just imagining that. Well, so, why are these bankers, why are they all Jewish? Why is all of Hollywood Jewish? Why are all the networks, the corporate news networks and corporations, media corporations in America, you know, Disney and everything, why is it all Jewish? And why are they all pro-Israel? It just doesn't make any sense. So it's like you feel kind of really stupid to say, oh, it's all conspiracy theory. It's like, really? You know, you just state facts. And then, I don't know, just you tell me. I don't really like to jump to anything like that, but you also cannot be scared of somebody saying you're a conspiracy theorist or an anti-Semite. You know, and being called an anti-Semite a lot of times is a badge of honor, because it says right there that you're onto their game and you're exposing the game. And that's the weapon that they use against you, a lot of these people. And most of them are just the Zionists. I mean, hey, they do it to Max Blumenthal, who is Jewish. What about Glenn Greenwald, who is Jewish? And they call them anti-Semites. They call them self-hating Jews. And there's a lot of them that are out there saying that Israel is actually doing this stuff. Some of them, that they even come right out and they say that. They say that we are Jews and this is what we're doing. We're taking over things and we're controlling everything. And it's like, and they're actually even proud of it. And like, please help me, what's going on here? It's some really weird stuff, And people like Milei, and there's Ben Shapiro and all of them. And I was always thinking, no, Ben Shapiro, is he Israeli or is he American? Or Mark Levine? And they're actually Americans, but they're far more pro-Israel than they are pro-America. They'll do anything to help Israel, even doesn't matter how much it harms the United States. And it's just absolutely amazing. Anyway, so yes, but mostly what I'm saying is when they start calling you these names or something like that is when see they have no defense anymore. So it's like Alan Dershowitz is the same way. So that means you got them. You got them and you've exposed them already, and you can celebrate, that you've exposed them for being really nasty people. So anyway, so yesterday, let's talk a little bit more about this power. And Keir Starmer, as we all saw, he's changed his mind. First he said the U.S. will not use their bases to launch attacks on Iran. And of course, right away he switched back and, okay. And I don't know. But he's a really weak man anyway. I don't know what pressure he's been going under. So I don't know. I don't think he's really necessarily in these Epstein files or whatever. But, Starmer, it's been proven that he loves pretty teenage boys. So that is his sexual freak out. Our young model teenage boys. And that thing came out when Zelensky, who also is attracted to a lot of, and he sent some of his favorite boys over to Keir Starmer. We're not allowed to talk about this stuff in the UK, by the way, so maybe this video will be axed in the UK. So, but anyway, some of these guys, and then apparently Starmer didn't want to pay them. So these guys got pissed off and they started, these young boys, these models, and there's 3 of them, and they weren't all together. This was all separate incidences. So they started damaging his property. I think they set fire to his car and his apartment and things like that, because he was probably thinking that Zelensky's going to pay for these boys or whatever. So he was a cheapskate. Maybe they didn't do what he wanted them to do. I don't know, circus seal kind of stuff. I have not the faintest idea. But anyhow, these guys were pissed off, these young boys. And so they were damaging things. So anyway, he's a wimp. And I guess in the UK you'd call him a wanker. So Keir Starmer is a wanker. He's probably he's got a lower approval rating than Liz Truss, apparently. I don't know, but he's still hanging on. Makes you wonder how. Anyway, and they're really going for that. But you got to pledge fealty to Israel if you want some political support, and that's obvious. But Donald Trump, he didn't have luck with Spain, so you got to say, kudos to Spain, the leader of Spain or whatever. And they said, no, we're not going to. Donald Trump, the things that he's talking about, that Spain is so bad. And he said, it's terrible, they're terrible, because they didn't want to put 5% into, of their GDP into building weapons and weaponizing for the coming war against Russia, which Donald Trump is is actually very, very much for. Don't let Donald Trump fool you. He does head fakes. He did head fakes to Iran. And I think if the leadership of Russia or even Belarus think that Donald Trump is actually a buddy, then they're very stupid. But I know that they're not that stupid. Lukashenko's been around a long time, and he knows that this stuff happens. I mean, he's watched this stuff before. So Donald Trump is just doing a head fake, acting like, oh yeah, okay, and he's the one that got them to increase their military buildup, and they're still buddies, the European Union. Merz was, a matter of fact, what I'm talking about right now was in the presence of Friedrich Merz from Germany. And Friedrich Merz with his legs crossed, I'm sure he likes little boys too. You can see by the way he sits that he likes probably, little boys. I don't like these guys that they sit there with their legs crossed looking really femmy, they can be femmy, I don't really care. Macron and all these guys, with their crossed legs like that, and it's like, ooh, how does that should hurt? Doesn't that hurt? Ooh, your family, parts right there. And but Merz, this guy's a freak. He's got an alien head and all that sort of a deal. And he's a professional liar too, and he's one of the main people that were responsible for the destruction of Germany by bringing in BlackRock. And I'm sure a lot of the property prices have gone up very much so, where people can't even pay the rent fees because of BlackRock coming in. That's the whole idea. What BlackRock went into Ukraine too, is to make huge profits. And they've already got the both ends of the Panama Canal, and they've changed things through. BlackRock is actually is kind of a nasty corporation. As you know, the Larry Fink, who was the CEO of BlackRock, he's very much way up there in the World Economic Forum by now. So, these people are some of the movers and shakers and the controllers of the world. Very fascinating things, as you all know, though. So, and we have to just sit back and watch and see how things play out. And hopefully we're going to get information constantly, and hopefully we can all retain and remember this information and connect the dots in the future when something else happens and say, oh, I remember back then and this happened that. So that is because of that. It's very much just like what I said about Donald Trump. He had to secure the oil in Venezuela before going after Iran, knowing that the Strait of Hormuz is going to be shut. So Donald Trump has a guarantee of at least a crude oil supply from Venezuela, as the crude oil supply from the Persian Gulf is shut off, because the United States does a lot of business through these Gulf states. So Donald Trump said, okay, well, it's very much like Adolf Hitler did. Adolf Hitler, he invaded Norway very early on. That was the first use of airborne troops, and to secure the oil before the real war started, and then Poland and all that kind of stuff. So that's really interesting. And then the push to, moving into Belarus and the ethnic cleansing of millions of people in Belarus, and a lot of people in Poland, but Belarus suffered more than any country in Europe in World War II. I guess we're not supposed to talk about that. So that was hidden. And the leadership of Belarus, of course, didn't try to play that card either. Maybe they should have. They're trying to be soft so that they can maintain relationships with all of their neighbors, which were on the side of the Nazis, like Lithuania and Ukraine. And you don't know about Poland so much. Poland originally were had an alliance with the Nazis, but that sort of changed. But the western part of Ukraine and Belarus just shut their mouth. Maybe they shouldn't have. Maybe they should have come out and started crying and whining like Poland did, and still does today. We're the victims. The Donald Trump sort of a thing. Oh, the victim. Everybody's against us. Give us money. Ukraine is the biggest, and the Israelis. Oh, feel sorry for us. Give us money. Oh, more money. So, Belarus didn't do that. Belarus, that's a very proud nation, and they don't have resources. They don't even have a seaport. And Belarus is amazing. It's an amazing country. You don't see tent cities, people begging on the streets, homeless. You don't have rapes and drug addicts anywhere. And yet they have virtually no natural resources. They don't even have a seaport. How in the heck is that possible? And that's why a lot of the countries in the West look at Belarus and they're sitting there amazed. How can Belarus be the way it is? Amazing country. I don't know, that's my today's promotion of Belarus. And so, beautiful girls too. But anyway, so Spain is actually showing that they are a sovereign nation. And Donald Trump is basically saying, we're going to go after Spain big time. We're going to cut off the trade with Spain. They didn't do what I told them to do. They didn't raise their GDP to 5% to get ready to go to war against Russia. And it's like, well, why in the hell would Spain do that anyway? Look at how far away they are. They're way over there on the... I mean, they're not going to get attacked by Russia, even if they thought that that was actually going to happen, which it's not. It never would have happened. And it's not going to happen. It's unless they really are successful in the provocations. But it's going to be happening probably in the Baltic Sea, and they're going to be going after Russian shipping, and Russia is going to have to respond. But that's not going to be mentioned in the press, what they're going to be doing to Russian shipping tankers. They've already been doing that. They've already been taking it. But the war isn't supposed to start until 2028 at the very earliest. So why are they doing that? France has, I think, taken 2 Russian oil tankers already. That's some weird stuff going on, people. So let's keep going. But the ties that Trump is trying to cut off Spain because he said, because they wouldn't allow the air bases for, the United States to launch attacks on Iran. And Donald Trump, what he said, I mean, very arrogant. This guy is incredible. But he's basically saying they're going to be a pariah state. I mean, unless they acquiesce to the demands of Donald Trump, the master of the world. They have to basically surrender their sovereignty, as the UK does. Oh, I'm Keir Starmer. Anything you want, anything you want. What did they call that in those days? Blair was Bush's poodle. The UK always gives the United States anything they want, always. It's kind of like the United States basically bends over for Israel with just about everything. The attack on Iran that Benjamin Netanyahu said, he admitted yesterday that he's been dreaming about for many, many decades, and he finally realized it with Donald Trump. I think it was always a bridge too far because a lot of the politicians, the presidents, they knew that they were toast as soon as they started doing that. I mean, basically in their approval ratings. But Donald Trump, he was emboldened, and like many people are saying, and I said immediately after he attacked Venezuela that will embolden Donald Trump because of how easy it is, and so many people are now saying that also in the news. And he thought, oh, I am invincible and I'll be able to do this to Iran, anything that I want. And he's finding out a little bit differently. And of course they can do a lot of massive destruction in Iran. And Donald Trump kind of finally realized it's a big country. He said that. So he's not going to do as much damage as he thought. And of course, Iran is going to be set back maybe as much as 20 years from this. And they're going to need a lot of recovery, but they're going to hold fast. But let's go back in Spain. So Donald Trump, he said that even if Spain is refusing him, that he will do it anyway if he wants. He said he's not going to do it, but he said he can do it. He doesn't care what they say, that he would just move in there and put his planes there anyway and start using it as a launch pad. Whether they like it or not is what he said, basically. And they can't stop him, he said. So this is clear evidence. You don't need to prove this anymore, that Trump considers himself a global dictator, that he controls the globe with the exception of a few countries. Obviously that Donald Trump he came right out and said it. He wants to control everything. All industries. This is the unipolar world. That is the definition of the unipolar world, that everything revolves around the United States. And he wants to prove that I, Donald Trump, am the one that is going to cement this in. And we lost so much power with some of these all other wimps like Obama and Biden. And now I am going to get that power back. Everybody is going to respect us. That's another thing. That word respect. I told you about this resort owner named Robert Barrett. I said his name now because he's passed. But he would invite me to breakfast and all that. And he was just talking about some manager. I didn't know at that time he wanted to consider me as being the manager of this this major resort, which is rated, I think, the #1 resort by Virgin Travel, the #1 resort in all of the Caribbean. You know, he wanted me to be the general manager of that, and he lives in Antigua, and he has these other resorts. One of them is called Pineapple, and all that sort of a deal. But it was very weird things that would happen. You know, I ate breakfast with him like maybe 4 times. He would fly me down, even from the main island of St. Vincent, and then I would land on Union. He'd have a boat for me, and then I'd go to Palm Island, and then eat breakfast and all that sort of stuff. And then I was growing at that time macadamia nuts and coffee and all that. And I can tell you so many stories about the talks and things that we had about that. And even at one time, somebody started a fire in the kitchen and locked the door, and it burnt down his whole kitchen when I was there and all that. But you were up all night and watching these people fighting the flames, and good insurance money. So, and I know what happened there. Well, that's another story. Got a lot of stories, a lot of war stories and things, times in the military and prison and in the Caribbean and all that sort of thing. So, so what else was going on? Netanyahu. But it's, like I said, clear evidence that Trump considers himself the dictator. And who controls the dictator? You know. So it's more shocking. And Benjamin Netanyahu, I don't know, is he the Uriah Heep? Oh, you know, but Zelensky is actually, I always call him like, oh, we're so humble. If you read Charles Dickens and look at this character, Uriah Heep, and it's a big, thick book, so you see him at the very beginning, and we're so humble, we saw, you know, kind of a pathetic little guy, and then by the end of the book, he's actually running the entire firm, and he's the guy that, the owner of it is now. It's like a transformation of characters. That's a very good thing in literature. It's like that happened in Othello too. And that's, I wrote something once, and these professors were all really amazed, and they were like basically really enthused about me. And I don't know, it was one of the big bragging moments of my life, is this analysis I did of the play Othello, where it was a transformation. That's at the same play where they said, beware of jealousy, she is the green-eyed monster that doth mock. And at the very beginning, the certain people, so it was all about bestiality, and it was talking about, you know, Iago is talking to the father of Desdemona, and saying the black ram is tubbing your ooh, and you know, in other words, having sex with your daughter and all that. And you know, it's using jealousy and people's things. But anyway, the people that were referred to as animals in the beginning, and it transforms, and the other people become the animals towards the end. Shakespeare was absolutely brilliant. So there's a transformation of characters, and it's very much like in like Charles Dickens, when when Uriah Heep becomes the master and the owner of the firm, and who was the owner, I don't know if it's Mr. Micawber, or no, not Mr. Micawber, but anyway, then he becomes the sniveling little servant of the master of the firm. So instead of him being the boss, he becomes, it's very interesting. Sorry about getting off on these tangents, people. No, but Netanyahu obviously is the guy more in charge than anybody else. And he even acts like he's not, but he actually is. And remember this thing, sitting there with Donald Trump, and they're asking Netanyahu. Some people use this and said, did you order Trump to bomb Iran? Are you the one that started it? And he's going, you ought to find it. It's in the tape. It's absolutely incredible. And it says, no, Donald Trump is the most powerful man in the world. Oh, don't think of that. And then even somebody asked Donald Trump similar on this. And Donald Trump, of course, went along with what Netanyahu. They're not together. This is a separate interview. Oh no! And Donald Trump couldn't look him in the eye, so he's looking down the whole time and says, "Oh no!" It's like, I had to convince Israel that we should bomb Iran. Yeah, right. And everybody knows. Anybody that has been watching this for decade after decade after decade. knows that Satanyahoo has been wanting the bombing of Iran for a long, long, long time. So everybody knows that the real truth is of that. And it's incredible how they try to fool everybody. So for any really free-thinking, sovereign, free-thinking human being, you have to be inspired by Iran. Iran, the leaders of this big resistance, they're absolutely incredible. It's just like Yemen. These people and their, what do you say? Their, what is that word? The resistance, I guess. There's actually more, but the resilience of this, you know, against this cabal of the evil Epstein billionaire class pedophiles, absolutely incredible. And I'm hoping they're going to get them down to their knees, you know, like Donald Trump. He's not going to get on his knees, of course. He's going to be bragging and saying he won and everything. He's going to be running out of the Middle East. He's lost all those bases. Donald Trump has lost all of those bases in the Persian Gulf, and they're not coming back. They're gone. Donald Trump, you're the one that did that. So, oh, what a master of the universe. So, we're all going to have a challenge ahead, because look at these people. They're in control now, and they're like a wounded tiger. They're going to be pulling all kinds of stuff, if they're not already. Look at what Scott Bessant said, that they purposefully destroyed the currency of Iran to kick in this thing. And then the Mossad did their part, and they started these riots. And it's a known fact. This is absolute. It's undeniable. Undeniable. So they kicked off these riots in here, and they were thinking that they're going to upset these people so much that maybe they can overthrow the government without any kind of a military thing right there. And they're going to, but of course they really don't understand Iran at all. Yes, Iran, I think they're going to keep on resisting. It's going to be pretty amazing. And I think the United States is going to be surprised. They're going to have to declare victory somehow and take off, just like what Donald Trump did with Yemen. It's incredible. Actually, Yemen kicked Donald Trump's butt, you know, as you saw that. Even if their country has experienced a lot of devastation, it's they still I'm gonna adjust this thing a little bit. They still won. They still won. It's that's the new win today. Is just you don't give up and you just keep on fighting. And the United States, what are they going to do? So they had, we won. Let's get out of here. And the objectives that the United States was supposed to be trying to achieve with Yemen, they didn't meet them. And what is this about Iran? They're going to destroy the nuclear program that they don't even have. They don't have one in the first place. They're not going to be able to get rid of all of the missiles that Iran has. So that is gone right there. That's not going to happen. So I think they came up with something else. What was this? Destroy the Navy. Well, they already did that, you know. So, and so what? I don't think Iran was putting a lot in their Navy. I think they got some small submarines still, to be honest with you. And they probably still got a lot of these little small boats, these little, what do they call them? They're like speed boats with guns on them or something like that. Unfortunately, they're going to be kind of like sitting ducks too. The United States, I think those were the original plan, I guess, in the old days when Iran was suspecting, you know, they didn't have the strong missiles in the old days. So they had these little boats believing that the United States would be coming into the Persian Gulf and that they would swarm them maybe with a lot of these little speedboats with guns on them that are very fast. But I think they're kind of obsolete now. And I think, to be honest with you, in a lot of these resistance people's minds, I think the best thing that they could do is just focus on missiles, 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 and missiles. And, you know, of course, drones, you know, to me, that's like a missile as well. And then there's going to be, of course, a lot of this cyber stuff. You know, that's going to be the next wave, and I don't know. But forget about these boats and even the Air Force. Iran didn't even concentrate very much on an Air Force. So you can, I guess, and still get air superiority without even having an Air Force. That's absolutely amazing. Because Iran has shut down a lot of the airports throughout the Middle East. Nobody can fly anymore because they're all afraid of these missiles. If that's not air superiority, what is? I don't know. But what about like Milei? Milei, he destroyed basically the savings of all the people in his country, and the United States tried to destroy the savings and everything in Iran. So a lot of this is this monetary stuff. So you got to be kind of wary about, that part of the thing. And I already told you that Donald Trump sent huge amounts of money to Milei. And they already sent huge amounts of money to Israel. Isn't that strange? The Zionist people is where they send a lot of the money. Why would Trump do that? Trump says he's a Christian at all. I don't know, maybe he's one of these evangelical kind of, that's very fearsome. You got to be afraid. Apparently, Hegseth, he's in the United States military going to some kind of Bible kind of stuff, and they believe all this really weird stuff. And then here they have the gall to say something like Iran is some kind of a radical cult or something like that. Well, who's a bigger cult? Is it in Israel? A lot of these Israeli people with their crap, or now the United States? They're trying to convince everybody to go for all this stuff. That they have to destroy Iran and kill lots and lots of people. I don't know. I don't want to have anything to do with all of that stuff. Wow. But I guess maybe one of the biggest things, you don't know what's going on. If you're going to have these people like Larry Fink, that's going to be the World Economic Forum, and of course the whole idea is against us useless eaters, or maybe the soon-to-be working poor. So you're going to be working. And I just heard about something. I was at that monastery yesterday, if you guys saw that video, and then I heard about some woman there, and she I think she has 2 children, and she's moved into some apartment which she needed to fix. They had to do a lot of rewiring. Maybe the things weren't working and all that. So she paid to get all of that stuff fixed, and her parents help her out quite a bit. She's got a job. She's got a full-time job. Doesn't make that bad of money for Belarus, but the person that owns it is a Russian, and they live, they're used to a different economy in Russia, of course. They live in Russia, and they raised the rent from 1,500 rubles to 2,000 rubles. And, that's what, I don't know, $700 US. And that's a lot, especially for an apartment you had to renovate yourself. And to get to work, she has quite a long way to go. And she's got quite a miserable life. But it's a lot of time, it's very hard to find apartments and things like that here in Minsk. To rent or otherwise, and so this woman, she has to get money from her parents to stay alive. And I don't know, I talked to the friend, and I said that she should actually try to find some different part. I'd never heard of that. I mean, unless you're in the center of Minsk paying 2,000 rubles a month, that's a lot of money, I tell you. But rent is kind of high here in Minsk too. It's not, I'll tell you, the best thing, if you're from over there, overseas, and you want to, come and move and live in Minsk or work here, renting, no. Then if you have to rent, unless you have a lot of money, unless you have some good pension coming in, I would definitely suggest not to do it. And you're far better off if you buy an apartment and then your monthly bills are kind of low. It's much less than in the West, much less. So that is the aim. So don't think you're going to come over here and rent an apartment, and that things are, because they are cheaper here, that you're going to be fine. Because if you have to work, your earnings is not enough. Unfortunately, that is a negative part about Belarus. But I said there's a lot more positive things. There's ways you have to, unless you have a good IT job, there's some really high-paying IT jobs and all that. So there is ways, and then, of course, you can make it very well then. So anyway, I'm just saying, for just some regular Joe that you don't have any big training, don't do it. So, yeah, we're all hoping that Iran can bring down this terrible system, which, of course, they're not going to be able to. But I don't know. And another point, this is actually very interesting. As you've probably all been hearing, you've watching the news, Iran said they have no interest whatsoever in talking to Trump. Trump says, "Oh, I hear they want to talk," and it's like, no, they don't. They never said that. Donald Trump, He's talking fantasy and lies just as much as Hegseth. I tell you, it is absolutely incredible. You know, they said the first casualty of any war is the truth, and Donald Trump is the liar in chief. I was thinking Donald Trump had a lot of honesty in him, but the guy lies and he lies and he lies and he lies. He is lying so much. He's always doing this, and I think he does that. Oh, they want to talk to me and they want to deal and all that, and I think he does that on purpose. It is supposed to be maybe directed at the other party. And he's basically saying, oh, how powerful he is and how weak they are, and they're getting on their knees. And he wants, I think, a lot of to show the world that everybody wants to come and get on their knees in front of Donald Trump. This guy has got an ego. He's a hegemon. This is I don't like arrogant people. Let me just put it that way. But anyway, Iran said, no, we don't. We don't want to negotiate with you. And so now Donald Trump has turned that around and said, they want to negotiate, but I told them it's too late. And they, I don't want to negotiate now. So he's just turned it around, and what they said, it's like projection, obviously. So what they said, he says that he said. He said what she, I don't know, anyway. So anyway, wow. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she came out and said stuff that, they got themselves into a mess too. And, but yeah, like I was saying, the major consequence to, as far as I'm concerned, is that he's lost all those military bases in the Persian Gulf, and I don't think they're ever going to come back. And I think the next move is what he's probably going to be doing, is trying to do what Biden and the West was doing with Ukraine. I think they're going to try to be pumping a lot of weapons into at least certain bases there. Maybe again Bahrain, because they destroyed Bahrain, and that was the biggest military base in the Gulf. And they're going to try to be pumping some of these countries full of weapons and build up to use as a battering ram again, maybe against Ukraine, and to against Iran, and to slowly build up that way, quickly. Anyway, to use them as weapons against Iran and again start the attack. It's a very same thing as what they were doing with Ukraine, to make an anti-Russia out of Ukraine. That's going to be amazing. So, and I'm talking about over the course of maybe the next 20 years, they're going to be trying to build up this again. And it's like the United States, they had a lot of control over Iran, remember, back in the old days, and then they assassinated, Mossadegh back in 1953, and took over. It's, I don't know, they can't seem to get themselves away from these things. It's just like what happened in Cuba. And so it's to send a lesson to everybody that once the United States owns you, you are 100% always going to be owned, because we're the masters of the universe and you cannot get away. It's like the mafia. Donald Trump is like a big mafia boss anyway, so I guess he fits right into that role. Anyway, that's enough for today, and I don't know, maybe I'll make another video. There's just so much information coming out, everybody. Make sure you put that like button, you damn well better, and I'll see you on the next time. Thanks again. Bye-bye.